Welcome to this week on Talk to Me, and joining me is Canadian musician and producer Danny Michel. Danny, thanks for coming on the show.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, obviously you're probably tired of being asked about music and pandemics, and it's weird for me not to start with that. But how have you been, and how has the last year been for you, my friend?
Um, I'm good. I'm okay. Yeah, it's funny. You can't talk to anyone without talking about the pandemic. That's what I find it's such a bummer. It's like whoever you talk to, all you do is you talk about the pandemic and when the vaccines are coming, and no one has any stories because no one's doing anything. Like normally, I would just have got back from tour and I would have some great stories to tell you, but there's been nothing.
I know,
But
unfortunately, right?
I'm doing well. I'm lucky. I live in the country, so that really helps. And spring is here, and that's helping a lot. And yeah,
Yeah, I think that's about all we can do is enjoy a little bit of the Canadian nature right now. Thank God it's spring as well. And in terms of you're obviously usually a very busy guy, so this is likely a frustrating year for you. But I've been following your career for quite some time myself, growing up in KW, and you're always doing interesting things musically and outside of music. And I've kind of wanted to interview you for a little while, and I just wanted to ask you a little bit about your experience with Belize, and sort of the Garifuna Collective, and how that came about.
yeah. I went to Belize back in the '90s on a vacation, and I really just loved it. And I went back again, and then I went back again, and then I started kind of like learning about the music of Belize, which is really unique, wonderful music, and there was this band that I fell in love with called the Garifuna Collective, and I started buying all these other albums, Andy Palacio and Paul Nabor, all these Belizean artists, and on the back of all the records, because they were records in those days, I would read all the credits, and they would all say that they all came out of the same studio called Stone Tree, and they all had the same producer. And I'm like, all the music out of this country's coming out of one little studio and one guy. So I tracked him down and I convinced them to make an album with me, which was hard because they were like, "Who are you? Why would we do that? Why would we make an album with a little Canadian songwriter dude?" Right? And I don't think they trusted me at first, and I think I won their trust, and it was a huge. I can't believe I did it. Now that I look back, it was I'm like, what was I thinking? Like I just went down there and like walked into a room full of this like established band, and yeah, so that happened. And then also on the place that I go and hang out at, there's a little school there, and one of the founders of the school is from Canada, and she asked me if I would help do a fundraiser to help pay for tuition for a student. And so I got involved with that, and then that snowballed because I figured, I'd gone to that country so much. But as a tourist, you just kind of take, and then you leave, right? I feel like you just kind of enjoy their culture and then you go home. And I felt like I wanted to give something back. Yeah. So then I've done the school thing it's been going on for a decade now. We've raised about $120,000 for the school, and yeah, it's been quite an adventure.
Yeah, I read a little bit about that on your website, about the charity, and it sounds like you've had some great success with it. And so, is the school, is it high school kids, or is it college, or is it different age groups, or?
It's a high school, and it's on a little island. So there was no school before, so most of the kids they couldn't afford to take. And education is not free in Belize, so most families can't afford it, and then they couldn't afford to put their kids on a water taxi to go into Belize City to go to school, and so they finally made a school there. And so yeah, it's a tiny little school. And like when it started, there was only 2 floors, and then we got another floor put on it, and then another floor. It just keeps going up. And now they've got a new campus, and they're going to move to a whole other school. So it's going great. It's cool.
That's awesome. And another thing too, people who know you as a pop artist, you've done a lot of different styles of music as well. Um, all kinds of mixes and collaborations. So, growing up when you were younger, what was that kind of first album, or those first couple albums that really hooked you?
Music that I was listening to, you mean?
Like when you were young, like when you were a kid.
Oh boy. I was all over the map, I swear. And that's probably why that's why I have like musical ADD, I say. Like honestly, when I was a kid, I was lucky my brother listened to great music and he influenced me. So when I was like 13, I was 13 years old and went and saw Bowie in Toronto at the CNE. Me and my buddy Peter got his brother-in-law to drive us there. And we saw Bowie and I was 13. But so when I was 13, we were listening to Bowie. We were listening to a lot of punk rock from the UK, like The Clash. I loved The Clash and Bowie and then at the same time, I liked like the very beginning of rap music, like Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five and Run DMC and Public Enemy. I loved that stuff, and so I was listening. And at the same time, I loved Tom Waits. My brother got me into Tom Waits, which was like crazy music of like accordions and pump organs and like waltzes and like crazy music like that. And then I was also listening to The Clash and Run DMC and I love it all. Yeah.
And it was also sort of, I was taking a look at your website too, and was fascinated by this Klebnikov project that you did. And, so I remember watching videos of you coming out on social media of you on this some sort of boat in the Arctic. Can you tell us what that was all about?
Yeah, that's another. The two big crazy projects in my life would be the Belize one and the Arctic, like extreme temperatures too. I got invited. I was the luckiest guy in the world. I got invited on this by the astronaut Chris Hadfield to go on this 18-day Arctic expedition on a Russian icebreaker called the Captain Klebnikov, and it was like a group of about 12 artists that him and his son had picked from around the world, photographers, filmmakers, writers, visual artists, everything. And we would go and have this experience and then come back and share it with the world in our medium. And I decided that I would, because I was there for 18 days, I figured I'd try to write a whole album. And while I was on the trip and record it. So I had a little studio in my little bunk, and I recorded my vocals and guitar on the ship. And then I came back and gave that recording to my buddy Rob Carley, another Kitchener-Waterloo guy who does music for film and film scores and TV. And he arranged my songs all to, a little orchestra. So then it kind of became this like Russian classical record. And Hadfield sings on it in Russian because he speaks Russian. And the drunken dishwashers on the ship sing on it in Russian. And it's pretty ridiculous. It's crazy. And yeah, it's like I put that record out and everyone was like, what is this?
And so I want to ask you a little bit about your charity work. I mean, obviously, you've been doing charity work for quite a while. You've always been doing interesting projects, I've noticed, as well as music, of course. And what is it is there something about your personality or something that's always driven you to do some of this charity work?
I guess it's just, it's just sometimes it can be a simple way to be helpful to help people out. Everybody, when there's something wrong and they want to raise some money, what do? They're like, let's have a concert, right? And that's what they always do, from Live Aid to like, helping your buddy's house that burnt down or something. That's always kind of been, ever since I was young, the first bands I was in. That's what I remember. We get asked to do a lot of charities. I get asked to do multiple ones a week constantly. And it's nice to be able to do them. But I pick a few that are special to me and I stay with those for a long time.
A lot of people in the Kitchener-Waterloo area, as you probably know, really look up to you. A lot of pride in the success you've had coming out of this area across Canada and around the world. And just wondering, obviously this has been a bit of a painful year for all performers. But Kitchener-Waterloo specifically is a town that has been kind of unique in Canada in that it's been growing really fast. There's been a lot of influx, a lot of people here, a lot of mix of new people coming, lots of business opportunities. Obviously a bit stunted at the moment, but it will likely to continue. What do you hope happens with the music scene here? There's obviously been lots of changes, lots of ups and downs in this area, but we're on the verge of becoming a bit of a bigger city. Do you think there'll be any changes, or what are you hoping to see post-pandemic around this area musically?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, yeah, I live out in the country. So when I come back to KW, I'm just like, what? I can't believe it. I can't believe how much it's changed. And like, from when I walked the streets of downtown Kitchener and went to St. Jerome's High School, and, it's what a difference it is. And and in those days we were so lucky. There wasn't like the music scene was incredible. Like I don't need like we took it for granted. We didn't even know, but there were like 20 venues, like from like Pop the Gator to Stages to Circus Room to the Volcano to Phil's to like there was dozens of places you could play, and every night there was music and tons of and it was so vibrant and we didn't know any better. We just thought that's the way it was, and it's just kind of not like that anymore. Like it was kind of like our little Seattle scene, and I don't think it's like that much anymore. Almost in lots of places, I think that's just because the way people consume music and how and the value of music and stuff like that too. So. But it was a really incredible. I mean, to have Mel Brown there and Errol Blackwood from Messenger, who they won the first Juno for reggae music. Like there was a lot of really cool stuff,
Yeah, definitely. I remember I was in high school, a couple years younger than you, but I just assumed that was normal. And when I tell people these days, sometimes they just kind of look at me, it's just changed. It's just different now. I'm like, yeah, it is, I guess, but I like to say it was definitely better around that time. And I hope that, as KW grows, that some, newer, bigger, not bigger, but venues will come around,
I think it will. I mean, there's always been, like, that was a really special time. And I think that can come back. I mean, we just got to get through this pandemic stuff, and people are, I think, dying to hear music. So
maybe we can take advantage of that, and we'll be a bit of a renaissance. Listen, I want to ask you just one more question. So obviously things are not humming along the way we all want them to right now, but are there any projects in the future that you're going to work on? Any foreign language albums coming out, or is there some stuff you're really looking forward to in the future?
I guess making a new record, but at the same time, I'm taking a little break. I mean, I'm actually kind of using the pandemic as kind of an opportunity to do. Like, I have played since I was like 19, and I haven't stopped. And I'm in my 50s now, and I always thought, I would love to just take a summer off or take a little bit of time off. I see other artists do that, who like just disappear for like 4 years. I'm like, oh, I wish I could do that, and so I figured, well, I am being forced to do this, so why don't I do that? And I'm doing a few little things, make some videos for fun every now and then, and I don't think if I'd like to put out a new record, but I don't want to do it during the pandemic. I don't want it to be about the pandemic. I just want to I think I'd like to kind of time it. So when this is all over, I'm back and go, hey, we're all back. And hey, I got a new album. I think that'd be a good way to do it. And it's really good for me to rest, have a break from it, and, force myself to really miss it again,
Absolutely. I guarantee I'll be there, and I'm pretty sure I know quite a few people who will be at that show as well. So listen, Danny Michel, it's been a pleasure chatting. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Great. It's great to have you on. Thank you so much.